Hey, welcome back to Opinions on Everything. My name's Forbes. I'm here with my good buddy Keith. How's it going, Keith?
Going well. It's a good Sabbath day.
Yeah, we're here on a Sunday that we may or may not have skipped church, and we've had a good time playing some tennis and disc golf, but we really wanted to break down the new Star Wars trailer today because D23 just happened, which is the Disney annual convention, and they put out some new footage, which started with a sort of a retro look at Star Wars with the first 6 movies. Had some footage from each, and that was cool. And then it brought in some Episode 9 Rise of Skywalker trailer information. What did you think?
I really liked it so far. I think that there's going to be a cool energy between Rey and Kylo Ren.
Yeah.
And they already play between the dark and the light, the balance of the Force, that there can't be the Sith without the Jedi or the Jedi without the Sith. There needs to be a balance or else one becomes evil. And are the Sith evil? Are the Jedi evil? There's kind of... Everybody thinks the Jedi are good, but...
They don't allow marriage or pregnancies, as we saw in the original trilogy.
So it's kind of... still, they teeter with the idea that one may be evil, and one... and it's not the one that you think of. So it is really cool the way that they started and how it looks like Rey and Poe and that team is on an adventure... looking for something. And if anybody's read the Aftermath, the Star Wars Aftermath trilogy, you know that the planets that they are on, Tatooine, Jakku, Endor, with all the waves. It's like a water planet. Mm-hmm. Those are the planets that Emperor Palpatine had his fail-safe plan. If he died, this would be like those would be like the 3 bunkers with the big Death Stars. So they're searching for something in there. So that's why it's really cool, the ending, when we see Rey as
Evil Rey
with the double lightsaber. What do you think about that?
Did you like the lightsaber? The way it folded? It was a double lightsaber that folded out. It was kind of weird.
It seemed a little bit more Kane. Like a cane folds out.
I guess, yeah.
But not like a cane. It just was... And it was really, really long.
Yeah.
Like that, just the handle was.
I do like that she has a double-bladed lightsaber, potentially. And it's probably a vision. We'll get to that. But because she has the bow staff in the first movie, so that's it makes sense for her to have a lightsaber like that.
Yeah, it does.
But yeah, I think it's probably just a dark vision, kind of like Luke had in Dagobah. And... Rey had in the last movie in the mirror cave or whatever, where she's just seeing evil and seeing where she could end up if she falls to the dark side. But there are also other theories. What do you think it is?
I think that this is most likely a vision, like you said. It may be that they explored into on Jakku, where she was born, where the last resistance, where the last fight between the Empire and the rebels were, that's she finds something in that Star Destroyer, and it's like the last bit of the Emperor, and she gets taken over, her mind gets taken over by him.
Yeah.
Or Darth Maul's, I guess he kind of now is canon living after that, isn't he?
Yeah, we saw him in Solo. Spoilers for Solo, sorry. I don't know if he's going to be living, because they're not going to do more Solo movies most likely, but Solo was a long time ago, so did he make it all the way to this? Probably not.
Probably not. So I think that it may be that she's possessed by, not turned evil, but somehow there was a fail-safe plan, and Emperor Palpatine decided that if whoever came into this who was strong enough to find his thing or his mind that he hid away, he could take over or something like that.
Yeah.
That may be interesting. Just a fun fan theory.
In the old Star Wars books that are no longer canon because Disney bought Star Wars and said a lot of that's just legacy, we're not going to count that as canon, Palpatine had clones, and we've talked about this a little bit already, but he had a lot of clones scattered all across the Empire and across the galaxy on the off chance that he died so that he could come back and still be in charge and rule. Mm-hmm. And it got to the point where it got annoying, because anytime in the books they're like, oh, here's a clone of Palpatine, you just got to fight him and whatever. So my potential theory, if it's not a vision, is that Rey is a clone of Palpatine who, once she either comes in contact with his dark energy, like you said, somewhere in one of his hideouts, that triggers something and she kind of gets taken over by the dark side at that point. Or if there's two versions of Rey, which that would be a little too much, but if there's two clones, she's a good clone and the other one ended up going evil, and they're both clones of Palpatine, which would explain why Rey's so powerful in the Force already.
Yeah.
So
that would definitely explain a lot.
It's definitely a possibility. What do you think Rise of Skywalker means?
I think that it is... I thought initially and I really haven't thought much more about it, but it was Kylo Ren and him coming to power since he has Skywalker blood in him. Mm-hmm. And it is kind of the Sith's... the Skywalker and the Sith. But it may be different since Luke died. He didn't have any offspring, but
presumably
the only offspring is Leia's, which would be
Kylo.
So yeah. Kylo's the only one left with Skywalker blood in him.
So essentially, the rise of Skywalker blood within Kylo, him becoming good at the end of this.
Yeah,
probably.
Yeah, or some realization in Kylo that Adam Driver, or sorry, not Andrew Driver is.
It is Adam. Yeah.
Oh, it is Adam.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Adam Driver.
That he somehow he's the figurehead and figures out what's right, what's wrong, how to use the two sides of the Force.
Mm-hmm. I heard a theory. Yeah. So kind of like that, both sides of the Force. I heard a theory that with in The Last Jedi, they kind of talk about how the Jedi need to die. Luke was all about that,
Mm-hmm.
in the trailers in particular. We're like, okay, Luke's done with the Jedi. And so what if Skywalker is the new name for the group? So it's not Jedi, it's not Sith, it's this gray middle ground where it's just people who use the Force. It's the Skywalkers.
Huh.
That was a cool theory. Rise of Skywalker was like the rise of the next group.
So instead of like it being the rise of the Jedi.
Yeah, exactly.
The last one was the Last Jedi.
Mm-hmm.
Now Rey is not a Jedi.
Right. And so is she becoming a Skywalker in the term, not a family member?
Yeah. Yeah, I like that.
That's possible. Do you think they're going to retcon Rey's parentage that they said in Last Jedi, where they said she was just from nobody? Do you think they're going to somehow make her connected to either Palpatine as a clone or somehow daughter of Obi-Wan? Or
I
something
see
like
a clone.
Yeah.
The clone is the most probable
Yeah.
explanation.
The only reason I say daughter of Obi-Wan is because in the first one she heard Obi-Wan's voice when she picked up the lightsaber.
Mm-hmm.
And that girl's name, I forget. In the little cantina place.
Oh,
Mods or something like
Mogs.
that. Yeah.
Mox.
So, who knows, maybe because they're doing an Obi-Wan show they just announced, so maybe in that show they'll show Obi-Wan getting with some girl and having a baby.
Yeah.
And it's Rey. So.
Yeah. That's separate from the Mandalorian,
yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
We got a lot of Star Wars coming. They're doing a spin-off of Rogue One show with some of the characters from Rogue One.
Including the Dothraki leader.
Was he in Rogue One?
No, not him. I'm talking about Khaleesi. Mother of Dragons.
Solo. Yeah, we'll see if they do a Solo spin-off or not.
It'd be really fun if Khaleesi was back.
Yeah.
And they need to redo Game of Thrones Season 8.
Let's just go over and restart Season 8.
Yeah. There's my plug for Game of Thrones. I mean, I'm not the only one who thinks it. Ivy Flynn also agrees.
She hates Season 8. She wants
can't stand it. So it's us and Ivy who are really leading the march to redo Season 8 of Game of Thrones.
Well, that was our breakdown of Star Wars trailer, Episode 9. You know what's weird about science, though? Sometimes there's science fiction stuff. And like L. Ron Hubbard, who wrote a book about some stuff that became a religion. It was Scientology.
But you know what's crazy?
What's that?
Before he wrote that, he failed in everything he did. As a writer, as he was in the Navy, and he fired shots on like just food boats. He thought that there were enemy vessels, enemy submarines, and like sank.
That's terrible.
All these ships in the Gulf of Mexico or right outside Mexico.
That's crazy.
I mean, it's just nuts, his story. And he basically got reprimanded, then went to work at a newsroom, and just was a little too crazy. Tried to write books, couldn't. And then he did what predated Scientology, which was called, I cannot fully remember right now, but it was this book, and it was just for a higher purpose. It's called like Deck something. But it was for everyone to find a higher purpose. Then that failed, even though he sank all his money into it. And then he started Scientology, where they didn't tell you what they believed until you were so far in debt and so far brainwashed that you couldn't think it was too crazy. So they captured you through a way that they did like a lie detector to break you down. You held these bars, and it sent a little bit of electricity through you, and it was called auditing.
Yeah,
so they audited you. And it's just the biggest mind control breakdown. You have to pay hundreds of thousands of dollars to do it. And then you have different levels, and you have to pay money to get to the next level. It's just the biggest scheme I've ever seen. And the reason that we're bringing this up is because Top Gun is coming out soon.
Top Gun 2.
Top Gun 2. That stars Tom Cruise. The other thing that stars Tom Cruise is Scientology. He is a figurehead, beyond a figurehead of Scientology. There have been so many reports of him saying he wanted a new girlfriend to the leader of Scientology, and then them finding him one, to Scientology really screwing over Nicole Kidman and keeping their daughter from Nicole. Just bad scenarios. And there have been a lot of executives in Scientology that have come out and talked once they figured out what's happening. L. Ron Hubbard, or whoever took over, kept them in like a dungeon once he figured out that he couldn't trust them, broke them down mentally, had them, these executives who were over all the business, everything, in like this shack of a hole in their property. And it's just nuts how they would beat them and torture them, and they would thank them for it.
That's weird.
It's just complete brainwashing. And they have the entire sect of their population called seamen, or sea workers, and it's basically just slavery. They don't pay them anything. They just feed them and house them, but it's just free labor, and that's why they're able to do a lot of stuff, because they basically blackmailed Congress into making them a tax-exempt religion, because they sued everybody was in Congress, or they sued everybody from the IRS. Everybody that worked on their projects, so they had hundreds of thousands of lawsuits on the IRS, and it was just this giant legal disaster.
They just bullied their way in.
Yep, and then they said, we'll drop all these if you make us tax exempt. So they got out of paying billions of dollars in tax money.
And not just that, I'm sure they use that as a verification that we're real,
Yeah.
we're the same as any other church.
Yeah. So that's just another way that once you get so big, you can do whatever you want.
Right.
Rules don't apply to you, and you can just bully your way around. Power in numbers. But it's just crazy that we still go to watch Tom Cruise when he is doing so much to hurt the world. And if we care at all, how in the world are we going to spend 2 hours just so we're entertained when the money partially goes to fund somebody who's causing a huge humanitarian crisis?
Have you seen the Mission Impossible movies?
Yeah.
That dude does his own stunts. He's freaking awesome.
Yeah. But it's nuts that we can sit here and say that he's good when he's attributing to brainwash people living hell on earth. And if you believe in a hell in the afterlife, depending on religion. But
well, that's crazy. What's crazy is that it says it has anywhere from 8 to 15 million members worldwide. Mm-hmm. It's crazy that it grew out of America, even, if it was originally here.
Yeah, they have. What part of Florida do they own?
I haven't seen anything about that yet.
It's
You said they have some beach in Florida.
It's not West Palm Beach.
No,
but it's one of those cities along the coast. But they own basically all the buildings there, and they have a
Virginia Beach, maybe.
But they own a big portion of it. It's just really scary that something like that could thrive inside a democracy.
They say that their auditing is to help people deal with their traumas. It says it's help them relive it and deal with it.
Yeah, but the crazy thing is that you have to go through so many auditing through people and
pay to be able to do it.
And then you pay to be able to do it, and then you reach the next level of it, the next level. And then once you reach like a G35 rank, or a XI 35, something like that, then they start telling you some of their secrets. But by that time, you've already told them everything about you. They have it all written down, filed.
So they can blackmail you.
They
or whatever
blackmail
else.
you in any way they want.
This is crazy. One of the major tenets of Scientology is that a human is an immortal, alien, spiritual being, termed a Thetan, that is presently trapped on planet Earth in a physical meat body. Well, yeah, he's a sci-fi writer, you know? Like, of course, this is insane. This is just a bunch of alien nonsense.
It is. They believe that the reason that we're here is because a world that looked like 1985 was attacked by a giant space force, and then the good lizard that is their god teleported these people to Earth. But it was a world that looked like 1985.
That's just nuts.
Yeah, it's all nuts, and there are 8 million people that support it.
At least, yeah. They said they don't actually report their numbers, so that's interesting.
Yeah,
they hide it a little bit. Now, I was saying before that Germany classifies Scientology as an anti-constitutional sect, and in France it has been classified as a dangerous cult by some parliamentary reports. So, like, people know, but there's nothing they can really do because there's so many members who are following. Not to mention big people, Tom Cruise, you know?
Yeah, and there's more than that, and there's just so many people that have a lot of power through it. It separates families once kids get in it. They don't go and talk to their parents. They're encouraged not to.
John Travolta.
Yeah, John Travolta as well.
Elizabeth Moss. Man, there's a lot of big names in here.
Yeah, it's a way that you can create power for yourself too.
Would you guess that Tom Cruise has totally lost his mind and is just essentially brainwashed, or do you think he's one of the people in charge and he's just taking advantage of people?
I think he's taking advantage of people.
Yeah? You think he's a bad dude?
Yeah.
Sad. I don't like to imagine Tom Cruise as a bad guy.
Yeah, I think he's just a really, really bad guy.
Wow.
So that's crazy.
Yeah, I mean, I was telling you before also that we're ones to talk. We're Christians, you know. God does weird stuff in the Bible all the time, so maybe our stuff looks crazy to a lot of people too. But this just seems
this
level to me.
This is definitely the next level cult.
You have to pay certain levels of donations to even participate in the religion. It's weird.
Yeah.
It's obviously just a money scam.
Yeah. And apparently if they would have had to pay those billions of dollars, they would have never been able to, in tax money, they would have never made it. So
that's what we do here in America. We take advantage of the tax system to enable ourselves.
Yep.
Look at Amazon paying $0 in income tax, right?
Yep. It's a beautiful thing whenever you're big enough so you don't lose money.
The people taking advantage of it.
Yeah. It is cheap to be rich, and it is expensive to be poor.
That's a good way to put it.
Yeah, it is. I was talking to some of my friends who live on the south side of Columbus, and it's just nuts. Just all the barriers that are in the way when you're poor, between having to take the bus, get off a bus, and spend an hour going to the grocery store, to not being able to insulate your house as well, to having to not being able to pay cash or have a 20% deposit on a house that you buy. So you have to have a bigger interest rate. So instead of you may buy a $80,000 house, but at the end of 15 years, if you only put 10% down, your interest rate may be 5% instead of 3%, and you ended up paying $120,000 for an $80,000 house instead of paying $100,000. That's $20,000 less dollars you have. But it's just crazy that if you don't have the money to front it, if you're not wealthy off, it costs you because you have to spread that money over time, have higher interest rates,
and have debt over your head for the rest of your life, essentially.
You can't fix leaky pipes.
Yeah.
Therefore, your water bill's high.
Yep.
But you're just trying to... There's a difference in being cheap and frugal, but there's also a difference in being cheap because you can't afford to have anything.
Right, you pay for the necessities and you decide what isn't going to be a necessity.
Yep. And then all of a sudden, that water may not be
running anymore
because you've...
Couldn't pay the bill or whatever it is.
Yeah. So... That gets us into...
Yeah, that goes to topic 3. Go for it.
Buying or renting a house. I want to start off with a few tenets. Always do a 15-year fixed mortgage. Always 15-year, not 7, not 30. 15-year, you can get the best rates. You always should put 20% down because then you lose or you knock off the... insurance, the bank insurance, loaner insurance, so like the bank will literally take interest out on you if you put less than 20%. Yeah. But if you put 20% down, then they knock that fee off because it's basically just insurance for them on you. But if you put 20% down, they say they trust you. So you're actually saving money if you have more money to put down. But anything over 20% is kind of overkill. Because it doesn't get you any more benefits like that. I would always try and do something without a realtor, even though it's harder to sell. Right now we're in a good market, so I think it's very feasible that you can do it without the realtor fees.
Yeah.
Because those can add up to be so much. Mm-hmm. And I would recommend, in my limited experience of buying a house, but doing a lot of thinking and talking to wise people, to try to split the cost when selling, the lawyer's costs, all the closing costs.
Split it with the person buying?
Yeah. Try to do that as best you can, but it is crazy, and that gets us into neither me nor Forbes own a house.
Yeah, correct. We're both renting. I rent a townhouse apartment, and you rent a house, essentially, currently. Yep. What's your state right now? You want a house still? I know.
Yeah, we're not positive where we want to live right now. I think that my basis is I have to know I'm going to want to live somewhere for at least 7 years in order to buy a house.
7 years from now.
7 years from now, because right. if I don't, then I think that buying a house is not worth it, because fixing it up and reselling it, the market won't change enough. You're going to be selling it for really what you bought it for, unless you're in a gentrifying area, a really booming area, which Columbus is not. Yeah. So you have to sink some money into it, and then in 7 years you can really turn a profit after you've paid some stuff off, lived in it, and fixed it up. But that being said, the water heater breaks. That's on you.
Big expense, yeah.
AC breaks. In Columbus, Georgia, that's on you. You got to get it ASAP.
Yep.
Sewage, everything. Right now, I can just call my landlords.
Yep.
No muss, no fuss.
It's great.
Water's leaking from the roof. Not my problem.
Our fan cord broke off one of our fans. We call maintenance. They fixed it. It's great.
So it's kind of those things that are the huge benefits, because you are paying for a service when you rent.
Yeah.
So that's what we need to talk about. Like, what are you getting out of renting versus what are you saving out of buying? Because if you buy a house, then hopefully in 15 years when you've paid it off, you've bought that house for $80,000, but you can now sell that house for $90,000, and you can net worth $10,000. So you have made money.
But what about your interest payments for your 15-year mortgage?
Exactly, unless you can pay cash.
Right. If you buy it for 80 straight up and flip it for 90, that's one thing. But if you paid 80, but you really paid 120, then not so good to sell it for 90.
Exactly. So that kind of gets into there, like, yes, you don't want to be sinking money for nothing, but at the end of the day, you may be paying the bank half of what you would in rent over that time.
Yeah.
You could sink money into a bank or into a local landowner.
Mm-hmm.
And that's something that you really have to think about, because you're buying nothing by using the bank besides their service to front money for you.
Until you pay it off, it's not yours. It's still the bank's.
So they can seize it any time, and that's a thought. But renting, you are just there. You have a few rules, but if you want to move, that is A-okay.
Easy enough. And
the freedom, you can break a contract and pay a little bit more, maybe find another renter for them. Yeah. If you have a good relationship with your renter, with your landowners, it can be a really beautiful thing for flexibility, being able to move, not being tied down, not having near as many responsibilities from taxes and everything from that standpoint is a big benefit to rent. But it still feels a little bit like you're kind of throwing money down a hole that you'll never recoup, or you're not investing in yourself, even though you are at that moment. Mm-hmm. You're just not paying it to the bank.
Right. There's an argument to be made also from a finance standpoint that if you can rent for cheap enough and take the difference and invest it at a level higher than what you would be paying for mortgage payments, then it's financially wiser to actually rent than it is to own.
Yeah.
So there's that too.
That's been my goal. We pay very little in rent. We've definitely gone down in rent from where we were. And it's lower than any mortgage than we would have. And we do save some money. And
sure, you don't have anything 15 years from now, but you also didn't have to deal with any pains of selling or buying or any of the maintenance costs or anything.
Yeah, just little things like being on the phone all the time with a realtor. Having to get out of your house so they can show it.
Mm-hmm. Keeping it super clean all the time so that you can sell it.
Yeah, just little things like that. It may take a year to sell a house, and you may be caught up in that all the time.
Odds are we're headed to a recession in the next year or so anyway, so it may not be a good time to buy a house.
Yeah.
Or it may be soon, but good to buy a house, but not good to sell. Just things.
Yeah, I'm waiting for the house that I really want. I'm waiting for the recession so that the people who own it are really going to go belly up, and that way I can take it off of.
Perfect.
I can, get the foreclosure and then laugh in their faces.
What a great idea!
I'm Tom Cruising this.
Is that an ethical choice you've made?
No, I'm part of Scientology now.
Oh, good for you.
No, I'm joking. Yeah. I don't know much about economics and bubbles, and I do know trends.
Yeah.
So
you currently are not looking to buy a house, but if the opportunity arose, you would be.
Yes, I think that I like living in Columbus because it is a very philanthropic town where people care about it and invest. A lot of people who really like this city invest back in it. It doesn't necessarily have great growth of people because of Fort Benning and because it's south of Atlanta. I just think Atlanta pulls all the cool things about Georgia, but I think Columbus could move in that direction. It's just Fort Benning kind of keeps us stagnant population-wise, along with, I'm sure, a few other things. Lack of progressive business ideas, lack of progressive leadership at a government level. Really, we have kind of conservative leadership, which tends to be less appealing to the youth.
Yeah.
Or young adults.
Talent retention is always the big word, and we tend to fail at that. Whether it be because we don't have a lot of job opportunities for young people, or if the town just isn't appealing to them.
Yeah. So those are the things that I think are important when you're looking to buy a house too. Is this area a place that may be up and coming?
Yeah.
Or should you just rent and wait to see what will be in the future? Where do you want to live? In a city that isn't booming, or do you want to, and maybe cheap versus going to Atlanta and paying
who knows how much
double.
Millions.
I was talking to my friend that lives in Birmingham. he lives in something half the size I live in. I live in a 2-bed, 2-bath. He lives in a bed and a half, 1 bath.
What's a bed and a half?
It's just a really small room.
Gotcha.
And it's just, he pays double what I pay.
Yeah, Birmingham
12
does well.
12.50, 3.13.
That's rough.
So it's just kind of like I have more amenities where I am.
Yeah.
Not more. I'm able to get downtown wherever I want, just as easy. No traffic.
Yeah.
Of course, you can do all the fun things in Birmingham, breweries and downtown life and more
Top
food.
golf.
Yeah, Top Golf, more food options, all that. But is that worth it when you're half your check every year or every month goes towards rent? I think that the rule is that you don't want to be paying more than 20% of your paycheck towards rent, towards living.
Which is scary.
Yeah, so
rent gets up there and paychecks aren't.
Yeah, so it can be very, very scary when you break it down. But I think that's a good rule.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're out there paying $2,000 a month,
that's just bad idea.
Unless,
but I mean, that's
you're
all you
making
can
it.
pay, right? If you're living in San Francisco, for example, it's absurd. You can't do anything else.
You're paying $3,000.
You can't buy a house because every house is $5 million or more, so you have to rent.
And I'm reading a book right now called Evicted, which goes over the eviction crisis in 2008. And it talks a lot about. It's a beautifully written book, very, very well researched, and it just talks about how evictions back in the 80s and really before the 80s, it was a scandal if somebody in a neighborhood got evicted. Like, the people from the community would take their stuff and put it back in their house and like boycott the police from coming in. Like, this is our community, these are our people. Now there are entire businesses focused on law, people in law that just work in evictions, sheriffs that specialize in evictions, just go around doing evictions all day, moving companies that specialize in
getting rid of people's stuff. Yeah.
Yep. So, loan sharks or loan pawning companies that work with it that basically are like ambulance chasers but are eviction chasers. Just things like that you don't see how expensive it is to be poor.
No, of course not.
But when you're evicted from a house and you have nothing, it's really hard to make your needs be met cheaply because you're not able to store and save. And
it's hard to have ill will, or not even ill will, but think poorly of someone who, of course, they're renting. Like they can't. They're so busy trying to feed themselves and take care of other needs that they can't be saving up for a house or a down payment on a house. They're just trying to do month by month. Yeah. And so that's tough too, because you get stuck in the renting cycle.
Yeah, you do. But I just think that the things that I've learned over the past year are what I said. Renting wise, don't pay over 20% of your paycheck towards your housing. And besides that, rent where you want then.
Yeah.
If that's part of the simplicity of renting, but then you get to buying a house and you have to think about you have to get the foundation checked no matter what, especially if it's an old house, like wiring, water, all that. You have to make sure that you have part of your savings set aside for house repair, because you don't want to end up having a tree in your house and you have no way to pay for it, just because the insurance company won't pay for it because it was on somebody else's yard, but you didn't tell them that they need to take down the tree because it's a danger to your house.
Right.
Just little things like that. Like, is there a scary tree around this house that I just dumped my entire life savings into?
Yeah, exactly.
So, and then all the stuff with, you don't want to pay really over 4%. It's really hard. I mean, you can pay over 4% interest rate to a bank, but that's hard. And you always want to put 20% down.
I know it sucks, but keep your credit score good. Otherwise, you're not going to be able to get a loan anyway.
Yeah.
Or you will, but it'll be a terrible rate.
Yeah, and never let a medical bill go unpaid, because that will hit your credit hard.
Yeah. They
tried to make it hit mine, but they sent all the stuff to the wrong address, and then they turned us over to a loan shark.
Did they?
Or a credit shark within a month.
Was this for the baby?
Yeah.
Man.
Isn't that crazy? And then I mean, we straightened it out because St. Francis or the hospital here messed up.
St. Francis.
Yeah, of course they did.
Yeah, of
so
course. Makes sense.
it's just there's just so much complication once you get into buying a house that you can just have a simpler life, pay a little bit more money, make it simple, and then you can do more, have more freedom to move.
Yeah.
And still live just as comfortably.
There's definitely pros and cons to both.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah, and I think that the simplicity really is a huge game changer for renting. Just being able to call your landowner and say, hey, can you fix this?
Or, hey, we're moving.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Yep. So, I like it.
Well, cool. Thanks for sharing. I think that's going to close it for this episode unless you got anything else you want to say.
No, I'm just happy to be here.
Yeah, well, y'all subscribe to the YouTube channel. Hopefully it'll be up on iTunes soon. And thanks for listening.
Yeah, thank you for listening, guys.
Goodbye.